Welcome to the sleep route. If you are ready to fall asleep, please fasten your seatbelts. Before we hit the road, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Press the like button if you like it. And leave your comments in the comments, and let's start our story. Imagine yourself waking in the pre-dawn hush of a small, medieval village. The air still cool and carrying the faint scent of wood smoke from yesterday's fires. It is the early 11th century, and the sun has yet to touch the thatched roofs that huddle together like sleeping creatures. You are a young woman, perhaps named Alara, living in a simple wattle and daub cottage, shared with your family. The straw pallet beneath you rustles softly as you stir, a thin woolen blanket offering meager warmth against the morning chill. The sounds of the household begin to awaken around you, the gentle breathing of your parents and siblings, the distant crow of a rooster, a dog stretching with a soft groan outside. There is no urgency in these first moments, just a slow unfolding. A gradual transition from the realm of dreams to the tangible world. The hearth, where embers glow faintly, promises warmth. Your first task, even before the sun crests the horizon, is to rekindle the fire, coaxing life back into the banked ashes. The rough texture of the kindling in your hands, the whisper of dry leaves catching the spark, faint crackle as small branches ignite. These are the sounds and sensations of your quiet morning. The smoke, thin and gray, drifts upward, carrying with it the faint scent of the forest. As the flames grow, casting flickering shadows on the mud-plastered walls, you begin to prepare the morning meal. Perhaps a simple porridge of oats or barley, slowly simmering over the rekindled fire. Outside, the first faint light of dawn paints the eastern sky in soft hues of rose and gray. You can almost hear the village beginning to stir, a low hum of awakening life. The clatter of a distant pail, the distant bleating of a sheep, the murmur of a neighbor's voice. These sounds blend into a gentle symphony of rural existence. Your hands, calloused from years of work, move with an unthinking rhythm, accustomed to the daily tasks that define your world. The weight of the wooden spoon, the warmth radiating from the clay pot, the earthy aroma of grains cooking, these are the anchors of your reality. The rhythm of your life, and indeed the lives of most women in this age, is intrinsically linked to the land and the seasons. The sun dictates your waking and sleeping, the harvest dictates your labor. There is a deep, comforting predictability in this cycle, a sense of belonging to something much larger than yourself. The air itself feels ancient, filled with the echoes of generations who have lived and toiled in this very spot. As the sun begins to truly rise, painting the world in golden light, you might step outside for a moment, drawing a deep breath of the cool, fresh air. The dew still clings to the grass, sparkling like tiny diamonds. The mist might still shroud the distant fields, giving them an ethereal quality. This is your world, simple yet profound, demanding yet deeply connected to the earth. There is a quiet beauty in its simplicity, a profound peace in its unchanging nature. The days stretch out, each one a repetition of tasks, yet each also unique in its subtle variations of light, weather, and the ever-present demands of the land. Your hands know the feel of rough wool, the spin of the distaff, the slow, satisfying click of the loom as threads interlace. You mend clothes, gather herbs, tend to a small garden plot, ensuring the sustenance of your family. The faint scent of drying herbs hangs in the air of your small cottage, a testament to your quiet industry. evenings bring a different kind of peace. The hearth fire casts long, dancing shadows, filling the cottage with a warm, reddish glow. The murmurs of conversation are low and comforting, tales told in hushed tones, the rhythm of voices a lullaby against the growing darkness outside. The long day of labor slowly unwinds, replaced by the quiet contemplation of dusk. The stars, unobscured by city lights, emerge one by one, vast and brilliant in the velvet sky, a silent testament to the immensity of the cosmos. Let us now turn our thoughts to a woman whose life, while perhaps not dramatically different in its daily rhythms, was shaped by the specific circumstances of her birth and the societal expectations placed upon her. Imagine Eleanor, born into a minor noble family in the early 12th century. Her destiny already largely predetermined by the expectations of her time. Her childhood, unlike Eleanor's, would have been spent not in the fields but within the walls of a small stone manor, perhaps learning the rudiments of household management, needlework, and perhaps a little Latin from a visiting cleric. Eleanor's days would have been filled with the rustle of finer fabrics, the clatter of servants in the hall, and the distant sounds of knights training in the courtyard. While she would not labor in the fields, her life was nonetheless one of quiet preparation. The tapestry loom, not the spinning wheel, might have occupied her hands, weaving intricate patterns of devotion or heraldry. The scent of beeswax and polished wood would have pervaded her home, a subtle difference from the earthier aromas of the peasant's cottage. Her marriage, unlike that of a village girl, would have been a meticulously negotiated affair, a strategic alliance between families, not a matter of personal affection. The details would have been discussed for months, perhaps years, the parchment crackling as agreements were sealed. Imagine the quiet apprehension in her heart as she overheard snippets of conversation. Her future unfolding before her not as a choice, but as a path laid out by others. The weight of family honor, of land and legacy, pressed upon her young shoulders. The journey to her new home, after the marriage ceremony, would have been a slow, measured procession. The rumble of cartwheels, the steady pace of the horses, the shifting landscapes outside the curtained carriage, each mile taking her further from the familiar, closer to the unknown. The scent of distant pine forests, the soft murmur of the wind through the trees, the occasional glimpse of a lone falcon circling overhead. These would have been the fleeting impressions of her journey. Upon arrival at her husband's keep, a new chapter would have begun. The stone walls, thick and imposing, might have felt both protective and confining. Her role as chatelaine would have been one of immense responsibility, managing the household, overseeing the stores, ensuring the comfort and well-being of all who lived within the castle walls. The heavy keys clinking at her waist, the faint echo of her footsteps on the stone floors, the quiet hum of activity in the great hall. These would have become the new sounds of her daily life. Evenings would bring a different kind of solace, perhaps a quiet hour by the flickering light of the fireplace, listening to the minstrel's gentle songs or the murmur of her husband's voice as he discussed the day's events. The scent of burning logs, the faint aroma of roasted meats from the kitchen, the deep quiet of the castle settling into its night rhythm. These would have been the backdrop to her contemplation. Though her world was one of greater material comfort, the constraints on her personal freedom were no less real, perhaps even more so, as her life was inextricably bound to the lineage and prosperity of her husband's house. As we drift onward, let us turn our attention to a more mysterious aspect of medieval life, particularly concerning women and the cultural understandings that shape their existence. Imagine the quiet hush of an archaeological dig years later, uncovering fragments of lives long past, perhaps a burial site, revealing not just bones, but the lingering echoes of beliefs and practices surrounding death and the afterlife for women. The subtle scent of damp earth, the careful brushstrokes uncovering fragile remnants, the soft murmur of discovery. Consider the intriguing phenomenon of female saints, particularly those whose stories have faded into the mists of time, known only through cryptic texts or the whisper of local legends. These women, often depicted in quiet, serene poses, dedicated their lives to piety, to serving God, or to acts of quiet charity. Their stories, often embellished over centuries, offer a glimpse into the spiritual landscape of the medieval mind and the specific paths available to women seeking a life beyond the confines of marriage or secular duties. Imagine, for a moment, the quiet solitude of a medieval nunnery, nestled amidst rolling green hills, perhaps with the gentle murmur of a nearby stream. The high stone walls, covered in ivy, offer a sanctuary from the world outside. The air inside would have been cool, carrying the faint scent of old parchment and beeswax candles. The rhythmic chanting of prayers, the soft rustle of habits, the quiet footsteps on worn stone floors. These would have been the dominant sounds. For some women, this path was a choice, a refuge from the pressures of societal expectation, offering a different kind of freedom, a spiritual autonomy. The lives of these women were often meticulously documented, their quiet acts of devotion and scholarship recorded in illuminated manuscripts. Imagine turning the brittle pages of such a manuscript, the delicate artwork shimmering in the soft light, the Latin script flowing across the vellum. The faint scent of ancient ink, the whisper of turning pages, the sense of connecting with a mind centuries removed. These sensations deepen the mystery. What motivated these women? What hidden wisdom did they seek in their quiet contemplation? Archaeological findings sometimes reveal objects associated with these religious women. Simple wooden crosses, fragments of devotional books, small worn rosaries. Each artifact tells a silent story, a tangible link to a world shaped by faith and spiritual dedication. The smooth, cool feel of a polished stone bead, the subtle scent of aged wood. These touches bring us closer to understanding their quiet inner lives. Then there are the more subtle mysteries, the unspoken narratives woven into the fabric of daily life. How did women cope with the limitations placed upon them? What forms of agency, however small, did they find within their constrained realities? Perhaps through their quiet influence within the household, their knowledge of healing herbs passed down through generations, or their roles as keepers of local traditions and folklore. The faint echoes of lullabies, the whispers of folk remedies, the quiet comfort of shared stories by the hearth. These cultural elements, often passed down orally, offer a glimpse into the resilient spirit of medieval women. Meanwhile, elsewhere in their world, life unfolded in a profoundly different manner for women at the very apex of medieval society. The queens, the duchesses, the powerful regents whose names echo through the annals of history. Let us turn our gaze to a grand castle, perhaps in France or England, its towers piercing the sky, its walls thick and formidable. The air here is different, carries the faint scent of expensive perfumes, the rustle of silk, and the distant sound of trumpets. Imagine a queen, her gown heavy with embroidery, pearls stitched into the fabric, her hair intricately braided and covered by a delicate wimple. Her mornings, unlike the peasant woman's or even the minor noble's, would not begin with rekindling a fire. Instead, servants would attend to her every need, the soft whisper of their movements a constant presence. The air in her chambers might be filled with the subtle aroma of rose water and fine linens. Her days were a tapestry of diplomatic encounters, managing vast estates, overseeing the education of her children, and perhaps even engaging in political machinations. The scratch of quill on parchment, the weighty feel of official seals, the hushed conversations with advisors, these were the instruments of her power. While her freedom of movement might have been curtailed by security and decorum, her influence could stretch across kingdoms, shaping destinies with a single stroke of a pen. Consider the complexity of her marriage. For a queen, marriage was the ultimate political instrument, a bond forged not for love, but for alliances, for securing peace, for producing heirs to consolidate power. The wedding feast itself would have been a spectacle of immense proportions. The scent of exotic spices, the sound of lutes and harps, the glint of gold and silver on the tables. Yet beneath the pageantry lay a profound sense of duty, a weight of expectation that far surpassed any personal inclination. Her chambers, vast and perhaps a little drafty, would still offer moments of quiet contemplation. The intricate patterns of sunlight filtering through stained glass windows, the distant sound of bells from the castle chapel, the soft rustle of her own luxurious garments, these would have been the constant companions of her solitude. She might spend hours poring over illuminated manuscripts, or perhaps dictating letters to her scribes, her voice low and steady, conveying authority even in quiet moments. The burden of producing male heirs, of ensuring the continuation of a dynasty, was a constant unspoken pressure. The quiet hope, the subsequent anxieties, the slow passage of time during pregnancy, these were intensely private experiences, yet they held immense public significance. The cries of a newborn echo not just within the castle walls, but across the realm, signaling stability or potential upheaval. Evenings for a queen might involve elaborate banquets, filled with the murmur of many voices, the clinking of goblets, the soft glow of hundreds of candles. The air would be thick with the scent of roasted meats and fine wines. Yet, amidst the splendor, there would always be an underlying sense of performance, of maintaining a regal demeanor, of being perpetually observed. The quiet moments, perhaps gazing out of a high window at the moonlit landscape, would have been rare and precious, offering a brief respite from the ceaseless demands of her exalted position. Her life, though outwardly grand, was arguably as much a trap of duty and expectation as any other, albeit on a far more magnificent scale. As we drift onward, imagine the subtle ways in which marriage, even before it was formally entered into, shaped the daily lives of young women in medieval Europe. The air around you, perhaps in a bustling market town of the 13th century, carries the scent of fresh bread, tanned leather, and the earthy aroma of livestock. You are a young woman named Isolde, perhaps in your mid-teens, and the topic of marriage is a constant, almost palpable presence. A hushed undertone in every conversation amongst the women of your household. Your days are filled with the familiar tasks of weaving, spinning, and preparing food. But there's an added layer of purpose, a quiet sense of preparation. Your mother teaches you how to manage a household, not just for your current family, but for the one you will eventually join. The feel of flour between your fingers as you knead dough, the rhythmic thud of the butter churn, careful stitching of a garment. Each action is imbued with the unspoken lesson of becoming a capable wife. The village well, where women gather to draw water, becomes a quiet hub of information. The clinking of pottery, the splash of water, the low murmur of voices exchanging news and gossip. Here, you might hear whispers of a potential match for a neighbor's daughter, the discussions of dowries, the reputations of prospective grooms. The air is thick with these subtle negotiations, these quiet assessments of worth and suitability. The scent of damp earth and fresh water accompanies these conversations, grounding them in the tangible world. Evenings bring a time for quiet reflection, perhaps by the flickering light of a single candle. The shadows dance on the walls, and the sounds of the night filter in through the thin window. The distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Might ponder the stories of older women, their lives so intrinsically linked to their husbands and families. The sense of individual choice, as we understand it today, is a distant concept. Instead, your future is a woven tapestry, designed by the threads of family, tradition, and economic necessity. The preparation of your trousseau, a collection of linens, clothing, and household items, is a long and meticulous process. Each stitch you sew, each piece of fabric you dye, carries the quiet hope of a stable future, a gentle blending into another family. The rough feel of unfinished linen, the smooth glide of a needle, the subtle scent of herbs used to preserve the textiles. These sensory details mark the passage of time, bringing you ever closer to that inevitable day. The concept of duty is woven into the very fabric of your upbringing. Duty to your family, duty to your future husband, and duty to the continuity of your lineage. The faint echo of your mother's gentle voice guiding your hands, instructing you in the ways of a virtuous woman, becomes an ingrained part of your being. There is a quiet acceptance in your heart, a resignation to the natural order of things, a profound understanding that your path is largely predetermined. The anticipation, though not necessarily romantic in the modern sense, is still a presence. A sense of newness, of stepping into an unknown future. The distant church bells tolling the hours, the gentle rustle of the wind through the fields. The unwavering cycle of the seasons. All these contribute to the quiet unfolding of your destiny. One slow, deliberate day at a time, the world around you, ancient and unchanging, seems to whisper the same message. This is the way it has always been, and this is the way it will continue to be. Let us now turn our focus to the narrative of a specific woman, whose life vividly illustrates the intricate web of duty and expectation that was medieval marriage. Consider Matilda of Flanders, a woman of significant standing in the 11th century, whose marriage to William the Conqueror was a monumental event, not of romance, but of political consolidation. Imagine the opulent court of Flanders, the scent of imported spices in the air, the rustle of expensive silks as messengers arrive with proposals and counter-proposals. Matilda's childhood would have been steeped in the intricacies of noble lineage, her education tailored to her future role as a queen. She would have learned not just needlework, but diplomacy, the art of courtly conversation, perhaps even Latin. The smooth feel of parchment beneath her fingers as she copied religious texts. The gentle clink of her jewels as she moved through the stately halls. These were the subtle textures of her privileged, yet constrained, existence. Her initial reluctance to marry William, a man of formidable reputation, speaks volumes. The quiet defiance she may have felt, The murmurs of her own desires were swiftly overshadowed by the overwhelming weight of dynastic necessity. Imagine the hushed conversations among her advisors, the solemn pronouncements of her father, the Duke of Flanders reminding her of her sacred duty. The air would have been thick with unspoken pressures, the distant sounds of courtly life a dull hum against the gravity of the decision. The journey to her wedding, even for a woman of her status, would have been a grand yet arduous affair. The rumble of carriages, the clatter of accompanying knights, the shifting landscapes outside her window, each mile taking her further into a life irrevocably bound to another. The scent of damp earth, the occasional glimpse of a lone falcon soaring overhead, the distant tolling of a church bell. These would have been the fleeting impressions of her passage. Upon her marriage, Matilda's life became intrinsically linked to William's ambitions. She became not just a wife, but a co-ruler, a strategic partner in the monumental undertaking of conquering England. Imagine her presiding over the court in William's absence, her voice calm and authoritative as she issued decrees, listened to petitions, and managed the vast affairs of their burgeoning realm. The weighty feel of official documents, the scratch of the quill as she signed her name, the subtle power conveyed by her presence. These were the instruments of her influence. Evenings in the castle, though grand, would have been filled with the constant hum of courtly activity. The scent of roasted meats from the great hall, the distant strains of music, the murmur of countless conversations, all these formed the backdrop to her ceaseless duties. Her quiet moments would have been rare, perhaps spent in her private chapel. The flickering light of candles casting long shadows on the stone walls, the faint scent of incense offering a moment of spiritual solace amidst the ceaseless demands of her political life. Matilda's life, despite its outward splendor and significant influence, was a testament to the fact that even for the most powerful women, marriage was fundamentally an institution of duty, power, and succession. Her personal feelings, her individual desires, were often secondary to the grander scheme of dynastic ambition. Her legacy, inextricably linked to her husband's, was forged in the crucible of political necessity, a quiet testament to the unseen chains that bound even queens. As we gently transition, let us delve into the more mysterious and often overlooked aspects of women's lives within the framework of medieval marriage. It's often revealed through the subtle clues left behind in archaeological findings and cultural expressions. Imagine a quiet afternoon, the sun casting long shadows through the ancient ruins of a medieval manor. Perhaps a place where daily life once unfolded in countless mundane ways. The faint scent of damp earth and moss hangs in the air, a silent witness to forgotten stories. Consider the intriguing absence of personal narratives from the vast majority of medieval women. Their voices, their individual experiences within marriage, are largely silent in the historical record. We have legal documents, dowry agreements, and wills, but rarely do we find their personal letters, diaries, or reflections. This silence itself is a mystery, urging us to read between the lines, to imagine the unrecorded lives. The soft rustle of leaves as a gentle breeze stirs, the distant chirping of a bird. These sounds fill the quiet void where their personal stories might have been. Archaeological digs sometimes uncover small, personal artifacts. A simple comb, a spindle whorl, a well-worn thimble. These mundane objects, handled by countless women, for a tangible, if silent, connection to their daily routines within the marital home. The smooth, cool feel of a broken pottery shard, once part of a communal meal. The subtle scent of aged metal from a rusted buckle. These fragments prompt us to imagine the hands that held them, the lives lived around them, the quiet joys and sorrows within the confines of marriage. Then, there is the quiet resilience embedded in folk culture and oral traditions. While formal church doctrines often reinforced strict hierarchies, local customs and beliefs sometimes offered a subtle counter-narrative. Consider the remnants of ancient fertility rituals, often performed by women, or the folk songs and stories that spoke of love, longing, and even subtle defiance within marital bounds. The faint echo of a lullaby carried on the wind, the quiet murmur of old wives' tales passed down through generations. These cultural whispers offer a glimpse into the emotional landscape that might have existed beneath the surface of formal expectations. The symbolic language of medieval art also holds clues. While many depictions show women in their roles as wives and mothers, there are also images of women in various other capacities, as healers, as artisans, or as figures of wisdom and allegories. These visual narratives, though often idealized, hint at the multifaceted realities of female identity, even within the confines of marriage. Imagine gazing at an illuminated manuscript, the delicate colors still vibrant after centuries, each brushstroke a silent message from the past. The soft scent of aged paper, the quiet hum of observation. The concept of private space within the medieval home, particularly for women, is another area of subtle mystery. While homes were often communal, did women carve out small, personal sanctuaries for contemplation, for quiet work, or for sharing confidences with other women? Perhaps a quiet corner by the hearth, a small alcove where light filtered in, a patch of garden tended with personal care, the warmth radiating from an ancient stone wall, the subtle scent of blooming herbs. These sensory details suggest spaces of quiet retreat. The very fabric of their homes, from the rough-hewn beams to the simple furnishings, whispers of lives lived, often constrained, yet always adapting, always finding subtle ways to assert their presence. Meanwhile, elsewhere in their world, the marital experiences of women at the very top of the social hierarchy presented a fascinating contrast, often cloaked in even greater layers of political calculation and public spectacle. Let us consider the lives of royal princesses, for whom marriage was not merely a family arrangement, but a matter of state impacting the destinies of nations. The air in these grand palaces, unlike the earthy scent of the village, would be filled with the subtle aroma of expensive tapestries, polished wood, and perhaps the faint trace of exotic spices from newly arrived trading ships. Imagine a young princess, perhaps Eleanor of Aquitaine, whose life from an early age was a meticulous preparation for a strategic union. Her education, far more extensive than that of most women, would have included Latin, music, history, and the intricate protocols of courtly life. The smooth feel of luxurious fabrics as she moved, the gentle chime of silver bells adorning her elaborate gowns, the hushed tones of her tutors, these were the constant companions of her formative years. Her first marriage to Louis VII of France was a grand affair, yet it was ultimately a union of duty that failed to produce the desired male heir. Imagine the quiet pressure she must have felt, the whispers of disappointment, the silent weight of dynastic expectation. The vast halls of the French court, filled with courtiers and advisors, would have echoed with unspoken anxieties surrounding the succession. The scent of burning logs in the immense fireplaces, the distant sounds of courtly music, the subtle tension in the air, These were the constant companions of her life as queen. Her subsequent annulment and swift remarriage to Henry Plantagenet, who would become King of England, was an unprecedented act of defiance and a testament to her remarkable agency. Even within the confines of a system designed to control women, this was not a private decision, but a diplomatic earthquake. Imagine the urgent dispatches flying across Europe, the hurried consultations. It's a clatter of horse hooves as messengers carried vital news. The air would have been charged with political intrigue, the scent of parchment and sealing wax heavy with significance. As Queen of England, Eleanor's life was one of immense power, but also immense constraint. She ruled vast territories in her own right, particularly Aquitaine, yet her primary role was still to provide heirs for the English throne. The constant journeys between her disparate lands, the rumble of her carriage on unpaved roads, the shifting landscapes outside her window. These physical movements mirrored the complexities of her political life. The feel of rough wool cloaks in winter, the subtle scent of horses in travel, the distant cries of her retinue. These were the textures of her itinerant reign. Evenings for Eleanor might have involved overseeing a vast household, engaging in strategic conversations with powerful nobles, or perhaps simply contemplating her complex life by the flickering light of candles in her private chambers. The soft rustle of her rich garments, the faint aroma of the castle's stone and ancient timbers, the quiet hum of a distant guard's footsteps. These would have been the backdrop to her thoughts. Her life, though outwardly one of extraordinary influence, was a constant negotiation between personal will and the demanding strictures of royal duty, a grand stage where marriage was the principal act, defining her every public and private move. As we gently transition into the intricate economic realities of medieval marriage, imagine yourself waking in a small, bustling artisan's home in a 14th century town. The air is thick with the scent of wood shavings, perhaps the faint temps of leather, or the clean aroma of freshly spun wool, depending on your family's trade. You are a young woman named Agnes, and while the field and farm were the anchors of Valera's and Isolda's lives, for you, the rhythm is dictated by the precise movements of craft and commerce. Your mornings begin not with rekindling a cooking fire, but perhaps with preparing the shop for the day, sweeping sawdust from the floor, arranging finished goods, or meticulously sorting raw materials. The smooth, cool feel of polished wood, the dry rustle of new cloth, the metallic scent of tools being sharpened, these are the sensations of your daily awakening. Your hands, accustomed to finer work, might be nimble with a needle, steady with a small chisel, or practiced at weighing out goods. The conversations around the dinner table, over a simple meal of bread and stew, often revolve around apprenticeships, trade routes, the price of goods, and, inevitably, the dowry. This word dowry hangs in the air like a subtle yet powerful promise. It is your family's contribution to your marriage, a tangible assertion of your worth and a means to secure your future. The clinking of pottery, the low murmur of your father's voice discussing figures, the quiet rustle of your mother's apron as she serves. These sounds and sensations are infused with the weight of economic calculation. Your preparation for marriage extends beyond household skills. Also involves understanding the nuances of your family's trade. You might spend hours in the workshop, observing your father or brothers, absorbing the skills and knowledge that could one day contribute to your own marital household. The rhythmic tap-tap of a hammer, the worry of a spinning wheel, the steady sweep of a broom, these familiar sounds accompany your quiet learning. The concept of economic value is intricately tied to your identity. Your ability to contribute to the family's prosperity, whether through your labor or the dowry you bring, significantly influences your desirability as a bride. The faint scent of the workshop, a blend of wood, metal, and human endeavor, becomes the backdrop to this quiet assessment. There is a sense of quiet pride in your skills, a silent understanding that you are a valuable asset. Evenings bring a different kind of quiet. Tools are put away, the shop is secured, and the family gathers by the hearth. The fire casts dancing shadows, and the conversations turn to more personal matters, though still tinged with the practicalities of life. The distant sounds of the town settling down for the night. A dog barking, a watchman calling out the hour, the muted sounds of revelry from a distant tavern serve as a gentle counterpoint to the quiet introspection. Your future, while largely predetermined by social and economic forces, is still a space of quiet contemplation, a gentle unfolding of a path that is both personal and profoundly societal. Let us now shift our attention to a woman whose life was profoundly shaped by the economic institution of the dowry, silent force that often dictated a woman's destiny in medieval society. Consider Margery Kempe, an English mystic and author of the 15th century, whose personal narrative, though unique in its religious fervor, offers glimpses into the financial negotiations surrounding her own marriage and the economic realities faced by her and her husband. Margery, though not of the highest nobility, came from a respectable Burgess family in Lynn, a prosperous port town. Her marriage to John Kempe, likely arranged by her family, would have involved a substantial dowry, a transfer of property or wealth from her family to her husband's. Imagine the quiet negotiations between the families, the rustle of legal documents, the precise counting of coin or assessment of land. The air might have been thick with the scent of parchment and ink, the hushed tones of lawyers and family patriarchs discussing figures. The very act of her marriage, for all its potential for personal connection, was fundamentally an economic transaction. Her dowry secured her place within her husband's household and provided a future for any children. Yet it also tied her property and her future inextricably to his control. Imagine the quiet understanding of this reality, a subtle weight in her consciousness. Even as the wedding celebrations unfolded with their sounds of music, laughter, and clinking goblets, Margery's later life, particularly her struggles with financial ventures and her husband's declining fortunes, further illuminate the economic dependencies of a married woman. As a married woman, her legal identity was largely subsumed under her husband's. Any property she brought into the marriage, and indeed any earnings she made, typically became his. This legal framework meant that her financial autonomy was severely curtailed. Imagine the frustration, the quiet desperation, as her own ventures failed, or as her husband's debts mounted, impacting their shared future. The scent of her struggling brewery, the bitter tang of spoiled ale, the quiet despair of her economic setbacks. These were the tangible experiences of her limited control. Even her religious pilgrimages, which form the core of her famous book, required financial negotiation and her husband's reluctant permission. She had to secure funds, often through her own efforts, and navigate the societal expectation that a wife remain at home. The subtle tension in her household, the quiet arguments with her husband over expenses, the deep longing for spiritual freedom contrasted with the harsh economic realities. These were the daily textures of her life. Marjorie's story, for all its extraordinary spiritual dimension, underscores a fundamental truth about medieval marriage. It was a primary economic unit, and a woman's financial existence was largely dependent on and controlled by her husband. Her life, a remarkable testament to individual will, was nonetheless continuously shaped by the unseen chains of economic dependency, a quiet struggle for autonomy within the prevailing system. As we drift onward, let us explore the more enigmatic aspects of economic life for medieval women, particularly within the framework of marriage. Often hidden within archaeological findings or encoded in cultural practices, imagine the quiet hum of an academic library, the scent of old books and dust motes dancing in the sunlight. As scholars piece together the silent stories of economic agency, consider the intriguing evidence of women's involvement in various trades, even after marriage. While formal guild structures often excluded them or limited their roles, archaeological digs in medieval towns sometimes reveal tools associated with specific crafts found within domestic contexts, suggesting wives worked alongside their husbands, contributing significantly to the family income. The gentle clink of a weaver's shuttle, the faint scent of dyes, the rhythmic sound of a fulling mill, these suggest a quieter, often unrecorded, economic partnership within the marital home. The mystery deepens when we consider the legal concept of dower or mourning gift. While the dowry was the property a wife brought into the marriage, dower was the portion of her husband's property that she was entitled to for her lifetime if she became a widow. This provided a crucial, albeit delayed, form of economic security. How did women navigate the anticipation of this potential future, and how did it influence their agency within the marriage? The quiet anxiety of a woman whose husband might predecease her, the subtle relief of knowing a safety net existed. These emotional realities remain largely unspoken. Archaeological finds sometimes include intricate keys, often found in women's graves, suggesting their role as keepers of the household's stores and finances. Imagine the satisfying weight of a heavy iron key in your hand, the faint metallic scent, the quiet responsibility it represents. This small artifact speaks volumes about a married woman's managerial duties, her practical involvement in the economic well-being of the family, even if formal ownership resided with her husband. Then there is the subtle cultural language surrounding gifts and inheritances. While direct inheritance of land often favored sons, women sometimes received movable property, jewelry, or specific bequests that offered a degree of independent wealth. Imagine the quiet satisfaction of possessing a precious brooch, cool metal against your skin, a small symbol of personal ownership. These small tokens, passed down through generations, whisper of female economic networks and spheres of influence that existed beneath the surface of official legal structures. The very architecture of medieval homes also offers subtle clues. The presence of separate women's chambers or designated working areas suggests spaces where women could exercise some degree of control over their labor or resources. The quiet hum of domestic activity, the faint scent of cooking herbs or drying linen, the soft murmur of conversations among women as they worked. These evoke a sense of shared economic endeavor, often overlooked in the grand narratives of male-dominated commerce. The true economic lives of medieval married women remain a subtle tapestry, woven from fragments of evidence, requiring a quiet and patient observation to understand their intricate patterns. Meanwhile, elsewhere in their world, the economic realities of marriage for elite women, particularly those from powerful, noble, or royal families, were on an entirely different scale, yet equally restrictive in their own way. Let us turn our attention to the sprawling estates of a wealthy duchess in the late medieval period. Perhaps in a region like Burgundy, known for its immense wealth and political influence. The air here would be filled with the subtle scent of expensive furs, polished armor, and the faint aroma of fine wine served in the great hall. Imagine a duchess, her days filled not with spinning or baking, but with managing vast land holdings, negotiating complex marriage contracts for her children, and overseeing hundreds of servants and tenants. Her dowry, unlike Agnes's small contribution, would have been enormous. Entire manors, large sums of money, precious jewels, and extensive rights. This immense wealth was a critical component of the alliance her marriage represented. The rustle of expensive parchment as agreements were read aloud, the glint of candlelight on the seal of a royal charter, the low, serious tones of her husband's advisors discussing financial matters. These were the sounds and sights of her economic existence. However, despite bringing immense wealth into the marriage, a noblewoman's control over her dowry and other assets was often limited by legal and customary practices. Her husband, as the head of the household, typically managed these resources. While she might advise or even dictate certain expenditures, the ultimate legal authority rested with him. Imagine the quiet frustration, the subtle power struggles that might have played out in hushed tones behind closed doors, amidst the opulence of her private chambers. The feel of a quill in her hand as she signed documents, knowing the ultimate control lay elsewhere, the faint scent of ink on her fingers. The pressure to produce heirs, particularly male heirs, was also an economic imperative for elite women. Each child, especially a son, represented the continuation of a lineage, the secure transmission of titles, lands, and wealth. The quiet anxiety of pregnancy, the immense relief or profound disappointment that accompanied childbirth, were not merely personal experiences, but economic events of paramount importance. The soft cries of a newborn echo not just within the castle nursery, but through the vast network of estates and alliances that depended on the continuation of the line. Even the death of an elite husband, while granting a widow dower rights to a portion of his lands for her lifetime, could also bring new economic challenges. She might find herself managing estates in a volatile political landscape, fending off claims from male relatives or navigating complex legal battles to protect her dower. The quiet rustle of legal papers, the murmur of her own legal counsel, the slow, methodical process of managing a vast estate, these were the textures of her widowhood, a different kind of economic existence. Evenings for an elite woman might involve overseeing lavish banquets, where the clinking of gold and silver echoed through the great hall, or perhaps engaging in quiet correspondence with other powerful women, discussing alliances and family matters. The scent of exotic perfumes, the glimmer of jewels, the soft murmur of courtly conversation, these were the superficial layers. Beneath them lay the constant economic calculation, the profound understanding that her every move, her every decision, was intertwined with the vast financial machinery of her family and her husband's. Her life, a golden cage perhaps, was nonetheless a constant testament to the economic nature of medieval marriage. As we gently arrive at our final segment, let us immerse ourselves in the quiet moments of daily life, where, even within the confines of medieval marriage, women found subtle pockets of agency and self-expression. Imagine yourself in a small, perhaps slightly isolated village of the 15th century. The air carrying the gentle scent of wood smoke and damp earth after a light rain. You are a married woman, perhaps named Julian, and while your life is undeniably intertwined with your husband's, there are moments of quiet autonomy, spaces where your will gently asserts itself. Your mornings, after the initial domestic tasks, might involve tending to a small herb garden, your own quiet domain. The cool earth beneath your fingers, the earthy scent of the soil, the distinct aroma of growing herbs, lavender, mint, chamomile. These are the subtle textures of your personal space. Here you cultivate not just plants for remedies and cooking, but also a sense of quiet ownership, a small corner of the world that is uniquely yours. The gentle hum of bees, the soft rustle of leaves as a light breeze passes. These sounds accompany your quiet contemplation. Within the household, your role as mistress of the domestic sphere grants you significant, though often unacknowledged, authority. You manage the food stores, direct the labor of children and perhaps a servant, and oversee the complex rhythms of daily life. A rhythmic thud of the butter churn, the steady clatter of spoons in a pot, the quiet hum of domestic industry. These are the sounds of your command, your subtle dominion over the inner workings of the home. The scent of baking bread, the aroma of simmering stew, the clean smell of freshly laundered linens. These are the tangible results of your quiet governance. Evenings, after the day's labor, offer moments for connection and shared experience with other women. Perhaps a quiet gathering by a neighbor's hearth, the flickering firelight illuminating faces as stories are exchanged, remedies shared, and confidences whispered. The low murmur of voices, the soft clinking of cups, the shared warmth of the fire. These create a subtle network of female support, a space where concerns can be voiced and shared understanding found. Here, away from male oversight, a different kind of agency emerges, built on community and shared experience. Your knowledge of local lore, of healing remedies passed down through generations, and of the unspoken customs of the village, gives you a quiet authority within your community. When a child falls ill or a neighbor seeks advice, it is often to the women that they turn. The faint scent of a poultice being prepared, the gentle touch of a soothing hand, the quiet reassurance in a voice. These are the subtle expressions of your influence, your contribution beyond the confines of your marital duties. The rhythm of your life, though seemingly dictated by external forces, also contains these hidden eddies of personal choice and influence. The way you arrange your small space, the songs you hum while working, the quiet moments of contemplation by the window as the sun sets, painting the sky in soft colors. These are the quiet assertions of your individual spirit. There is a deep, comforting sense of resilience, a quiet strength that permeates your being, an understanding that even within constraints, life offers its own subtle freedoms. Let us now turn our attention to the remarkable life of Hildegard of Bingen, a German Benedictine abbess, writer, composer, philosopher, and visionary of the 12th century, whose story powerfully illustrates how women could carve out profound agency and influence, even within the deeply patriarchal structure of medieval society, often through the sanctuary of the convent. Her life, though untouched by marriage, serves as a powerful contrast, highlighting the alternative paths to self-determination. Hildegard was placed in a Benedictine monastery at a young age, common practice for daughters of noble families, but for her, It became a launching pad for an extraordinary intellectual and spiritual life. Imagine the quiet cloister, the scent of old parchment and beeswax candles, the rhythmic chanting of the nuns, the soft rustle of their habits. Within these walls, shielded from the immediate pressures of marriage and family life, Hildegard found the freedom to cultivate her immense talents. Her visions, which she believed were divinely inspired, became the foundation for her vast body of work. Theological treatises, medical texts, and even musical compositions. Imagine the quiet intensity of her concentration as she dictated her profound insights to her scribes. Her voice low and steady, filled with the certainty of her revelations. The scratch of quill on vellum, the faint scent of ink, the gentle murmur of her words filling the quiet scriptorium. These were the textures of her intellectual output. Hildegard's influence extended far beyond the convent walls. She corresponded with popes, emperors, and kings, offering spiritual and political counsel. She undertook preaching tours, a highly unusual activity for a woman in her time, addressing both monastic and lay audiences. Imagine the quiet awe in the faces of her listeners as she spoke, her words resonating with authority and conviction, cutting through the usual societal barriers placed upon women. The distant sounds of the countryside, the murmur of the gathered crowds, the compelling power of her voice, these created a unique space for her agency. She founded her own independent monastery, defying traditional structures and asserting her leadership. This act required immense strength and political acumen. Imagine the quiet determination in her actions, the careful negotiations, the unwavering resolve as she guided her community. The construction of new buildings, the scent of fresh mortar, the joyful sounds of the sisters settling into their new home. These marked her triumph in creating a space of female autonomy. Evenings for Hildegard would have been spent in quiet contemplation, perhaps composing new chants, studying herbal remedies, or simply meditating on her visions in the solitude of her cell. The flickering light of her lamp, the deep quiet of the monastery at night, the distant hoot of an owl, these would have been the backdrop to her profound intellectual and spiritual life. Hildegard's life stands as a testament to the fact that for some women, a path outside of marriage offered not a trap, but a profound liberation, enabling them to reach their fullest potential and leave an indelible mark on history. As we gently come to the close of our journey, let us explore the profound mystery of women's silent sanctuaries, the ways they maintained their inner lives, their personal beliefs, and subtle forms of power within and outside the formal structures of medieval society. Imagine the hushed reverence of a hidden crypt, or the quiet intimacy of a domestic space, long abandoned, now yielding its secrets. The subtle scent of ancient dust, the cool feel of forgotten stone. Consider the enduring mystery of female devotional practices within the home. A formal worship took place in churches. Many women maintained private altars or prayer corners, spaces for personal piety. Archaeological digs sometimes uncover small devotional objects, a simple crucifix, a fragment of a prayer book, a worn rosary bead, suggesting a rich inner spiritual life. The faint scent of dried flowers, the smooth, cool feel of a polished wooden carving, the quiet murmur of whispered prayers. These hint at a world of faith that was deeply personal and often unrecorded. Then there is the intriguing concept of women's knowledge, often passed down orally and outside formal institutions. This encompassed midwifery, herbal medicine, traditional storytelling, and the preservation of local customs. These forms of knowledge, often held exclusively by women, gave them significant, albeit informal, power within their communities. The soft rustle of dried herbs, the comforting aroma of a healing concoction, the gentle cadence of a story told by the hearth. These were the subtle expressions of their expertise, their quiet authority. Archaeological analysis of skeletal remains sometimes reveals evidence of practices related to childbirth and maternal care, hinting at the intimate, often communal, support networks among women. The quiet empathy shared between birthing women, the soothing touch of an experienced midwife, the gentle murmurs of encouragement. These are the unspoken stories of female solidarity and agency in moments of profound vulnerability. The very bones whisper of lives lived in concert, of shared burdens and quiet triumphs. The mystery also lies in the individual acts of quiet resistance or adaptation that allowed women to navigate their constrained realities. Perhaps a subtle act of defiance in choosing a specific fabric for her own clothing, or the quiet nurturing of a skill not directly tied to her marital duties. Like a particular artistry in embroidery or a talent for storytelling, the delicate feel of a fine thread, the soft glow of a needlepoint in the flickering light, the quiet satisfaction of creating something beautiful solely for its own sake. These were small acts of self-affirmation. Finally, consider the legacy of women's contributions to culture and society, often uncredited or subsumed under male names. The anonymous artists who illuminated manuscripts, the scribes who copied texts, the craftswomen who produced textiles. Their skill and dedication shaped the material and intellectual world. The faint scent of ancient ink, the gentle curve of a beautifully drawn letter, the intricate pattern of a woven fabric. These are the silent testaments to their creative agency, a quiet, profound influence woven into the very fabric of history, often overlooked, yet ever present. These silent sanctuaries reveal that, even within the confines of medieval Europe, women found ways to nurture their spirits, exercise their intellect, and subtly shape the world around them. Meanwhile, elsewhere in their world, women at the pinnacle of society found their own unique silent sanctuaries and expressions of agency. Often far removed from the domestic sphere of the average woman, yet equally profound in their impact. Let us envision the vibrant intellectual court of a powerful patroness, such as Christine de Pizan, a remarkable writer and philosopher of the late 14th and early 15th centuries, whose career challenged prevailing misogynistic views. The air in such a court would be filled with the rustle of scholarly robes, the gentle whisper of turning pages, and the subtle scent of expensive parchment and fine inks. Christine, widowed at a young age, chose not to remarry. A bold decision that allowed her an extraordinary degree of intellectual and economic independence. This single act was, in itself, a profound assertion of agency. Imagine her quiet determination as she built a career as a professional writer, commissioning her own work, employing scribes, establishing her own scriptorium. Steady scratch of her quill on parchment, the faint scent of ink, the rhythmic turning of pages by her assistants. These were the sounds and textures of her intellectual sanctuary. Her writings, particularly the Book of the City of Ladies, were direct challenges to the prevailing societal norms and philosophical attacks on women. She meticulously researched, argued, and constructed a literary defense of women's intelligence and capabilities. Imagine the quiet intensity of her focus as she immersed herself in ancient texts, debating philosophical points and crafting her compelling arguments. the soft glow of candlelight illuminating her manuscripts, the deep quiet of her study late into the night, the profound satisfaction of putting her thoughts into enduring words. These were the moments of her powerful self-expression. Christine also cultivated a network of influential patrons, including queens and powerful noblewomen, who supported her work and provided her with a platform. This demonstrated a different kind of sanctuary, an intellectual and social space carved out within the elite circles, where women could support and uplift each other. Imagine the hushed conversations among these powerful women, the subtle exchange of ideas, the shared understanding of the constraints they faced, and the strategies for overcoming them. The rustle of their silk gowns, the clinking of their jewels, the soft murmur of their intellectual discussions, these were the sounds of their collective agency. Evenings for Christine would have been spent not in managing a traditional household, but in the solitude of her study, or perhaps engaging in stimulating intellectual debates with visiting scholars and fellow writers. The distant sounds of Parisian life, muted by the thick walls of her residence, would have been the backdrop to her profound intellectual labor. Her choice to dedicate her life to scholarship and writing, rather than remarrying, allowed her to create a unique and lasting legacy, a testament to the power of a woman's mind when given the freedom to flourish. Her life stands as a powerful example of how, even in medieval Europe, women could find profound agency and intellectual liberation, even if it meant stepping outside the expected path of marriage and domesticity. And so, we have gently reached the end of this quiet journey. This was the final chapter of our story for tonight. We hope it brought you peace, calm, and a step closer to restful sleep. Thank you for listening. We'll meet again in the next video. Until then, sleep well.